So I'm sure you are aware that the new Choir of One Exotic Special Auto Rifle is currently bugged and will be fixed in a future patch, drastically lowering its reserves and fixing its issue of dealing bonus damage when hitting a target affected by divinity. The news of this have gotten the vocal part of the community all riled up, saying Bungie is anti-fun, this will kill the weapon, and this was unwarranted as the weapon isn't any good. All of that is very untrue. To prove that, I'm going to show you the insane current damage numbers for Choir of One compared to other top special and heavy weapons, since other reviewers didn't paint the full picture, and then present the worst case scenario for the reserve changes based on the given information. But before we talk numbers, let's give a quick overview of the weapon. Choir of One is another special ammo primary weapon, following the likes of rocket sidearms. ADS the weapon to fire it like a traditional low RPM auto rifle with similar range, albeit much more akin to the likes of Forerunner. Hip-fire the weapon and you'll create projectiles like that of a Vex Wyvern. Slow-moving plus-shaped projectiles that use 5 times the ammo, but fires quickly and does nearly 3 times the damage. Kind of like having a rocket or the Fourth Horseman in your back pocket. Similar to other Vex-themed weapons from episode Echoes, rapid final blows will cause targets to explode and then leave behind pools of radial area that cause damage over time. Now the numbers. For all testing, this was done solo, while at 2016 power, with all weapons at 2000 power, while in the legendary investigation mission of Witch Queen, which is capped at 1905. Damage is their base values, no buffs, debuffs, divinity, or artifact perks are included. Only exceptions are some legendary weapons with specified damage perks. When figuring out reload and DPS values, this was a combination of personal testing and reference data gathered by the amazing Mossy Max and Aegis, whom you should follow in the links down below. Choir of One's ADS damage against minors was 7,180 to the body and 11,474 to the crit, with crit damage against bosses being 6,421. The hipfire Wyvern shot mode has some peculiarities. If fired at fairly close range while all shots are still compressed, it'll deal a total of 33,238 damage against minors, split amongst 2 numbers, and 18,604 to bosses. Once the shot gives enough time to travel and spread, each of the 5 projectiles will show 2 numbers, with a grand total dealing 30,080 damage against minors and 16,840 against bosses. So if you fire closer to the target, you'll deal about 10% more damage. Looking at total ammo, mag size is 25, so 5 of those Wyvern shots, base reserves is 250, and times 3 reserves is 382. Let's talk damage against minors first, since it is a special primary style weapon. Total damage against minors while ADS, that's 286,000 for 1 mag, 2.8 million for base reserves, and 4.3 million for max reserves. To give this context, let's compare similar style weapons, so other special primaries or those that fit a minor add clear role. Since I compared it to Forerunner earlier, let's start with that. Forerunner does more crit damage, 16,000 versus 11,000, but body shots are heavily punished, only dealing 3,000. Total damage is not good. 190,000 for 1 mag, 1.1 million at base reserves, and 1.4 million at max reserves. That is nearly a third of Choir of One's total damage. I hear you saying, but what about DPS? Yes, Forerunner is higher in that regards, but not drastically so. 46,000 over its full reserves, while Choir deals 39,000. What about rocket sidearms? People seem to love them and say they have a good ammo economy. Well, it's even worse for them. Less total damage than that of Forerunner, and DPS now clearly below Choir at around 28,000. Turning to trace rifles, let's look at a fully revved up Cold Heart and a standard legendary trace rifle. Clearly these weapons, as special primaries, should do better. No, it's even worse. Terrible total damage and even lower DPS. For perspective, 2 mags of Choir of One are equivalent total damage of an adaptive trace rifle. Now this more points to a problem with trace rifles rather than Choir, but they currently fit similar roles. How about machine guns? Those are supposed to be purpose-built for minor add clear and total damage. Even a fully kitted out commemoration with reconstruction, killing tally, and Actium war rig, Choir of One still has more total damage, but it does deal 10,000 less DPS. Since Choir is this add clear and boss damage weapon, let's look at something close to that, Microcosm. While it does similar DPS to Choir, around 40,000, its total damage is only 1 to 1.3 million, a third of Choir. And remember, Choir is a special weapon. Microcosm and Commemoration are heavy weapons. Enough with minor damage. Let's look at boss damage. Maybe it underperforms there to compensate. Well, I'm sure you know the answer after seeing other boss deletion videos and damage testing. This thing is great. While ADS isn't the highest DPS, as you will see, its total damage is superb, 160,000 for 1 mag, 1.6 million for base reserves, and 2.4 million for max reserves. That's 3 to 4 times the total damage when compared to Forerunner, Rocket Sidearms, and a Vorpal Rapid Fire Fusion, all while having comparable DPS. 21 to 25,000 for Choir, while those previously mentioned are in the range of 16,000 to 30,000. Of course, this isn't the true DPS mode for Choir of 1, that's the Hipfire Wyvern Shot. Since it consumes more ammo, it does take a hit to total damage, 84 to 93,000 for 1 mag, 800 to 900,000 for base reserves, and 1.2 to 1.4 million for max reserves. To give that context, Leviathan's Breath does 61,000 per shot with just over 900,000 damage across its whole reserves. An aggressive bait and switch rocket, 68,000 per shot with 750,000 over its max reserves. 3 spike bait and switch edge transit shots are equivalent to how much damage each mag Choir of 1 holds. But what about DPS? High total damage doesn't mean a lot if it takes a long time to go through it. However, the time to completely empty Choir of 1 in Hipfire mode only takes 20 to 30 seconds, depending on reserves. That lines up beautifully with typical boss damage phases and is either similar or double the empty time compared to other boss DPS weapons. For full reserves DPS, Choir is similar to Microcosm yet again, ending up at 37 to 41,000. But Choir does have a significantly higher 1 mag DPS due to how quickly it can get out those Wyvern shots. This makes it similar to heavy grenade launchers or rockets with overfilled initial mags with the perks like Envious Assassin, Reconstruction, or Restoration Ritual, having initial DPS starting at 66 to 83,000 respectively, but then dropping to 40 to 50,000 towards the end when you have to start reloading. In a lot of ways, it's a new 4th Horseman with its high burst DPS. But unlike 4th Horseman, it has the reserves to keep things up for the entire damage phase. One final good yardstick is that of Leviathan's Breath, which manages to have higher DPS at 51,000. But factor in the current booster reserves, and Choir can have over double its total damage. So while it isn't the supreme king of boss DPS, especially since I didn't include damage and ability rotations, for a special weapon that is just firing and reloading, it is rivaling heavy weapons while still having more than double the total damage. Yes, the Wyvern shots are slow-moving projectiles, but they have no self-damage. So you can either use them at range for non-moving targets, or close range where otherwise a rocket or GL would be quite risky. Recapping minor enemy damage, it is firmly the king, on par or greater DPS while having up to triple the total damage of its competition. This is closer to a master of all than a jack of all trades, and hopefully you can now understand why it is getting adjusted. Let's ignore the discussion of nerfs versus bug fixes for now, and let's talk about the upcoming changes. In episode 2, so 5 weeks from this video, the reserves of Choir of 1 will be decreased. The exact values aren't known right now, just a post from the D2 Teams account that we should expect it to be closer to 200. Is that above or below 200? Is that base or max reserves? How does reserve scaling affect it? We don't know. But let me present you with the worst case hypothetical given the listed information. Based on the wording, we'll put max reserves at 200. Keeping the current reserve scaling for Choir of 1, a 53% increase over base, the new base reserve should be roughly 130. For round numbers, let's go with 125 base, so 5 mags worth, and 200 with times 3 reserves. Plugging that in with our previous numbers, and we see basically a halving of total damage. DPS technically increases since that is a product of time and number of reloads, not total damage. Starting with minor total damage, it is now more in line with the likes of Forerunner, Rocket Sidearms, Choice Rifles, and Microcosm, but it is still higher. On par at base, but near double the total damage when we were at that 200 shot value. Looking at boss total damage, we see that Hipfire Shot is now in line with other special weapons like Rocket Sidearms and 4th Horseman, and now significantly under popular heavy weapon options. However, if you look at the ADS normal fire mode, it is still greater than special options by 50 to 100%, matching or slightly exceeding heavies. Not the preferred mode for DPS, but it helps conserve ammo while still dealing decent damage. Hopefully, by seeing the numbers laid out before you, you can realize that Choir of One was insane and needed this to be fixed. Even after the reserve changes, it'll still be good, and just shift to this excellent jack of all trades instead of being above and beyond so many weapons. Treat it like a pseudo primary while you run and gun, and then you can use the hipfire mode to burst down big enemies like champions or bosses. You just have to be more mindful of your hipfire ammo economy. Even if the reserve changes end up being worse than what Bungie has announced, Choir of One will still be good. The only way this weapon becomes trash is if its base ammo is below 100, max reserves end up being below 200, and they also tweak damage values by a decent amount. With that, it's time to rant about nerfs. Why is it that anytime there's a change, people just cry nerf, this is bad, and Bungie is anti-fun? First, Bungie is letting us play with this overtuned exotic for 5 weeks, as they aren't patching it until Episode 2 in October. They have the fix already planned, and seemingly could ship it based on their post, but are just letting people have fun at the end of an episode. Like previous problem exotics, Bungie could have just outright disabled the use of it in all activities. Second, stop confusing nerfs with bug fixes, please. If something isn't intended, it'll get fixed, and when it does, it wasn't nerfed. This isn't some shadow nerf disguised as a bug fix. Something clearly didn't ship right with the weapon. You can clearly see that when looking at the damage numbers I just showed you. There is a difference between this weapon is a little too hot and we need to tone it down, and something is clearly broken and this needs to get adjusted. Third, while it is fun to play with powerful stuff from time to time, there needs to be a balance to things so that there is challenge. Breezing through stuff with OP gear all the time gets old real quick. Ask a lot of the hardcore players in the state of the endgame. And no, the answer isn't just make things harder or buff everything else up to Choir of One. No, that's power creep. To create balance, some things must be brought up, some brought down. Simple as that. It isn't a personal attack on you or designed to be anti-fun. The goal is balance, to walk the lines between challenging, engaging, and fun. Fourth, I just hate the word nerf. People throw it out willy-nilly and it is so negatively charged at this point. People see a negative change, label it a nerf, and instantly get mad. They don't even think for a second of why this change is happening, or even the true impact of the change. People remember the M&K stability changes for SMGs. People lost their minds. And then it was hardly noticeable in-game. Or those upcoming Hunter changes to the parts of the prismatic kit. Chaos. I'm not saying some nerfs end up going too far, I'm just saying maybe don't get truly riled up until the changes actually make it into the game and people can mess around with it. To those of you still here, I appreciate it. Sorry I went off on a little rant. Just something I wanted to get off my chest. I have a lot of charged opinions and hot takes that only my friends know about. If you have any thoughts or curious about what else I have to say, feel free to ask in the comments. Otherwise, go enjoy your supercharged Choir of One while you can, and hopefully you can feel content with the future reserve changes. When we get confirmation of the exact reserve values, I'll try to have it in the pinned comment. So, feel free to share this video with your friends to calm their nerves, subscribe for more Destiny content, and come check out the Sundog Gaming Discord to learn some endgame content. As always, I'm your Commander Pika. Be kind, have fun, and I'll see you on the battlefield.